I mean, General's old.
General is old, yes. Welcome to Jarviskjir to kill a Lich. We can go live for the last little baby chunk here.
Speaking of baby chunks.
So, for the next couple of days, this planning comes together with the assumption that dwarves will come to your aid. Because, like I said, humans and dwarves have a mercantile relationship now, but not necessarily an alliance. But you start building with this assumption as banners start forming at this place. And over the next couple of days, this place actually starts to be known as arms meet to the people here. It's very much a halfling suggestion, because halflings like to name about everything. It's very interesting as well. While the humans are amassing under banners, and you have the banner of Wedford, the banner of the North Guard, you have the banner of the Green Pines, all these banners coming together. In the halfling little camps, it's groups of songs, Oh, I recognize this song from the south, and this song is from the small muddy little town on the coast. And it's it gives a very different atmosphere to the war camp, very similar to what Mikael was trying to do, where instead of it being this dour atmosphere of everyone falling, a lot of these songs are, they're wartime ballads of other horrible things that happened untellable in the past. As it starts to come together. What are you doing?
My dog is begging for attention.
Oh, I thought you were doing another puppet.
No.
Are we a dog stream now? Are we going to have 2 out of 4 dogs?
I mean, Will, you want to go upstairs and get...
Nope.
Yeah, you go.
So, after a couple of days of these banners converging, actually while you're sort of preparing, and actually very early in the morning where you're sort of getting ready and you're putting on your armor and your gear and things, you actually hear a loud trumpet through the camp of a the Emperor has arrived! And you're like, oh shit. And you are amassed to the edge of the camp where the Emperor's palisade is being brought in on the shoulders of multiple people who are bringing it in. A obviously golden affair with silks and all these things coming down. It's essentially the fancy equivalent of a Pope-mobile, if you don't know what a palisade is. This defensible transport device. And it is very much defensible. At least Riel and Devi know that this is a very enchanted, very holy thing that is entirely nearly impenetrable. And when it is put down on the ground, the Emperor steps up towards a lot of you. And like I said, the Emperor is a very young man. Emperor Pyth VI is only 16 summers old. He is very young, and the crown even doesn't exactly fit on his head. He's a very pale individual with literal golden hair. The divinity is very clear in him, this almost glow about his body. And as he wears very rich, extravagant clothing, but is not as extravagant as is possible. This is almost the equivalent of some more formal wear, not quite officer wear, but is, something a little bit more reined in than some of the clothes you've seen him in before. And
I don't want to be here for this.
Do you not come when summoned?
Yeah, no, I'm just gonna turn to Vial and say, I have to go do literally anything else.
Devi, you should at
Come
least...
find me if you need me.
You should at least be here for the Emperor.
Oh, come on.
It's for your own good, if nothing else. You should respect him.
Fine.
And I'm already like when he's approaching, I'm like taking a knee and probably dragging Devi down with me.
And assume the other 2 of you do similar things, and also the other generals who have been amassed here. Some of them are here, not all of them. And he sort of waves you to stand up, and is just, I thought it was appropriate to come here myself, as we are amassing the armies and preparing for an outright assault. I'm not foolish enough to fight on the front lines. I do not have the fire in my fingertips that my ancestor has had, but it is my duty to know what is happening in my empire and see what is amassing here. And he kind of looks with a a noble's disdain on the general filth of a war camp. And, there's people who have even got injured, like, trying to put up tents and things. Like, there's already injuries and things on the field, and he just sort of looks over everything with a slightly, disdainful look past a lot of you.
Your Majesty is truly wise. Your mere presence here will bolster the spirits of the troops.
Of course, and I bring more than spirits. And he sort of motions behind him as the collection of things here of more knights and things. There's another palisade, which is just a big war chest of gold that is like dropped, and this is one of the things where it's dropped on the ground and opens slightly with gold spilling forth. It's like, there are mercenaries in this land, enemies that you have perhaps fought yourselves. The goblins of Yavin are despicable, horrifying creatures, but the redskins of them are intelligent enough to understand the value of our coin. And with that, they will fight for us, perhaps expendably, so that our kind can live longer in combat.
To have an added shield between the human troops and the abominations would be most welcome, Your Majesty. You have my gratitude for, and I'm sure all of our gratitude for this benevolence.
I am glad that you see my wisdom. And he sort of looks over and sort of nods, like, my aunts always have been wise. And, looks a little longer at Devi and looks over the rest of you, but then just starts sort of walking almost away to talk to you, his bodyguards and other individual things. This is kind of what he came here to do, and he's probably not going to stay very long.
I'll actually, as he turns, before I get the full back, because that would be rude, I'd say, Your Majesty.
The General.
While I agree with your aunt that your arrival here is a portrayal of exactly how wise your rulership is, I think it's also important that you understand what it is that we're amassing here and the strategies that we intend to use to defeat this surmountable foe. We are looking to make alliances, albeit likely temporary ones, with those that you have once called enemies of yourself, as you are trying to do with the ones that we have called enemies ourselves. This includes perhaps dwarven clans that you do not have a strong relationship with, and perhaps others that we would look upon with greater disdain. I just wanted to make sure that Your Majesty was aware of our tactics and that we're going to do what we must to preserve your empire at its expense.
I have been sent doves of your plans, and I believe it proper. This gold comes to bring another enemy into the fold against an enemy that is greater than all others. Ultimately, what we face here is something that my forefathers have never faced truly. It is a battle on the side of life against death incarnate. It is something that Pyth, my ancestor, has never had to surmount in all the enemies that he did smote. But I believe in uniting others, even if they are not as blessed as my family. And he does even look at you with a little bit of a, because you are a halfling, and nods. Your battle plans, I have been taught deeply of the strategies of combat and battles in our history. You are using many historical techniques that have worked greatly in the past, in both the armies that I respect and those that are despicable. And I believe that we have a chance of truly ridding the world of this menace, and that chance must be taken.
You may not have fire in your fingertips as your ancestors did, but the words that you speak will spark fires in the hearts of those that follow you. I'm glad to do so myself, Your Majesty. Then do a bow.
He nods like you said the right thing, and steps some way away, being led by one of his gold armored bodyguards further into the camp to probably do what you're saying, so, just sort of make his presence known. But of course his presence is already very known and is already giving a bit more morale to, the dwindling morale of, an army, and I can't remember the term, is it a standing army when like an army's just sort of preparing? The morale goes down and down as they're not getting into the fight and all that. And that sort of ramps everyone back up, as well as some of the generals going and preparing this treasure and starting to send it southward on the backs of horses and grand sacks to hire some hobgoblins, if they can. And anything else we want to do while the Emperor's around?
Honestly, after he's leaves and his closest complement leaves, I will turn to the rest of them, because we have grown to be friends with one another, and say, I'll never fully understand the idea of emperors or kings. The human way of life is strange to me, but who am I to argue with his existence? It seems to work for you.
Yeah, because it's one of those things, we mentioned you talking with halfling leaders. Mm-hmm. Even that's not comparable to a mayor or something like that.
You don't bow and
it's just someone who talks for the village, right?
Yeah. He's like, hey, what's up, buddy? Let's have a beer. Just bowing and kneeling and groveling is some bullshit.
Well, he is a descendant of Pyth himself. It is only natural he should revere one so holy. I must admit, I do not understand how your people can function with so loose a confederation as they do.
Trust, not oversight. Trust. I say, giving a pat to the forearm, because your higher arm is too high.
Oh, I believe we have bonds of trust. They are just from superior to subordinate, whereas perhaps yours are more equal in standing.
In your culture, trust has to be earned, individual to individual, class to class, so on and so forth. Amongst my people, we trust, and unless that trust is broken, there's no reason to earn it. We have no reason to not trust one another. We all just want to live the same kind of life, a peaceful, well-fed one.
I suppose when that is your ambition, then that trust is possible. We, humankind, desire much more from the world than simple food and rest. Perhaps that is where the difference lies.
Your desires carried you across the seas and have carried you throughout the lands. Desires have served you well. I see something about your people that I find interesting myself, which is why I've worked with you for so long and so well. It's just the customs I find amusing.
Riel does smile slightly at that. I'm sure I would find dwarven or elven customs just as amusing, or less so halfling customs. I've been around you enough, but I can understand where you are coming from, at least, although I'm not sure I could say that for all the races on this continent.
Well, in my culture, it is always incumbent upon the one generation to leave gifts in the world a better place for the generation next. And this is your nephew, so we should do what we can to leave the world a better place for him before we pass in our time. So I'll follow you.
Indeed. My whole life has been dedicated to the Empire and to the next generation to ensure it is better than a better place than when I came into it.
It's kind of from this point, because this is no longer a camp that is ours. This is now a camp that's the king's that we're in. So at this point, I very much stop leading anything and start following everything, because it's not my place anymore.
Well, it's one of those things, the Emperor doesn't stay here for very long. And very much you are still ask things. But more you are, it's probably spend more time in the halfling camps, asking about them, even being probably the go-between, you particularly general, between the humans and halflings and the humans and the dwarves. The dwarves and the halflings don't really care. They get along fine. But a couple of dwarf, like there's some dwarven coalescence here, not so much to be an army, like a stand of dwarven merchants who have come together from the nearby lands, you know, who are answering questions and providing battle strategy. You would be going between them a little bit more.
It's more than questions of battle strategy. Another thing that I would be very interested in is finding peoples that know stories of this person from the past. That's something that my character actually has a passion for. And if I could even go so far as to convince a group of peoples from each to share stories together in a room over food and wine or whatever, just to like gather these together. Because
like over
there's
the night,
what we
over
know,
the fire.
And there is what each individual group knows, and we need to share it.
Exactly. And that starts to happen over. So one of the things is when the Emperor starts to leave, you are ready to go. With the Emperor's blessing, the next night, you march. And with this time, and the last night in Armsmeet, almost everyone gathers around a large, great fire pit that is lit by Pyth himself before he leaves, putting his hands over the fire and the light shining very brightly in one spot before, actually quite similar to Mikhail's sunburst, but in a much smaller way, just completely lights a bonfire hearth that was prepared beforehand. And then he leaves. But you all amass around it and start telling these stories. And the dwarves tell stories of entire holds that have disappeared, with Verminus drifting in. But also how Verminus's armies have also ignored some. How some smaller mines and communities merely locked their doors, locked their windows, and watched as skeletons drifted past, the skeletons of hobgoblins and of other monstrous creatures who completely ignored them. The halflings do tell very long, very lengthy stories, but they're mostly about how small communities survived. And very similarly, often the goal of the undead are to bring back slaves, but they often don't go in with the kill. But it's in the human stories that they are so much more murderous that the humans fight back and the humans attack first, seeing these horrible creatures on the distance, where other races often, especially halflings, often sort of run, hide, defend their families in the temples. The humans instantly try and attack with all the forces, and many of the bannermen here have been in fights against the undead, similar to a few of you, and they tell these stories of meeting them in field and open combat as they see the traveling bands of undead and causing these incredibly bloody battles that weren't caused by others. Even some of the dwarves have stories about that giantess you saw, about a giant whose decision to side with the side of death shook the remaining giants in the world, and that the dwarves have dealt enough with them, the giants, to hear rumors of this story of the giantess who decided to choose the side of death over life because she thought it was cleaner.
So two things with what you just described. One, because of some are walked past and some are outright attacked. And then also there's the ones that were attacked because the humans would do like, the initial. So I suppose marking with 3 different colors or whatever it is. Try to get, or commission, if commission has to be done and there's not just one around, try to get an accurate mapping or a decent size map that covers most of the land and the areas to like make sure that we map out which ones they assaulted, which ones they walked past, and which ones you don't know because the humans attacked first. So gathering the stories that way kind of would, this isn't something that my character knows anything about magic or anything like that, so maybe, assuming there might be a ritual or something like that that's pertaining to this because of what his end goal is, leaving this even to William's peoples, because they're the ones that study magic, even if it's through clergy. And then the other thing was, when I was talking about amassing of stories, funny enough, one of the things I was talking about was amassing of stories from the past, ancient stories of other, and like what has happened in the past, because those details are going to be
some of these are from very, very, very long ago. These aren't incredibly recent. The humans ones are, obviously. But the dwarven ones, the halfling ones, and the story of this storm giant, seems to be from hundreds of years ago. No one even knows her name.
So important details would be places that they've attacked or sieged in the past, if we can gather those details, and if they line up with places like that of the present. Try to draw lines of like, this has happened before, and what is happening.
Obviously.
You get what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah.
But again, this is something I think it's well over. While he might have the idea, this is well over Osborne's ability.
It's one of those
to-
things you maybe put together a
to-
map and you mention to other people, and you have a smaller, more detailed map, and you're just maybe placing these pieces together and asking people like, oh, where was this? And a lot of the time they don't know. They just straight up don't know where this was in the world. The dwarves are more often be like, it was exactly here. There's a ruin here that is forbidden to enter because it is a pox on the land. But more or less, it was like halfling stories, human stories. They don't know. Obviously, a lot of the human attacks, there's a lot more of them, you know, on just exactly where you travel through. And you know already why. It's because the humans just keep settling, even though they know it's dangerous, because the chance to farm a little bit more, make a little bit of money, maybe even mine, is just worth it so much to them. Very clearly you notice when putting together this map that they're all it's a very concentrated sort of bubble of things. You never hear of stories on the other side of the Dwarven lands, not even very far into the Dwarven lands, because Copperbeard's Hold was designed to stop this. It's all very close and together.
this time around, but in the past it appeared in different locations.
It always appeared in the same place.
Oh, my apologies. It's probably something you said last session and I missed.
Yeah, well, this is one of the things you very much notice, is that it is a concentrated sort of circle of events around where you know Vanateth to be. But because it's such a rumored thing, you didn't know if it was exactly here all the time. And of course, very few of these stories actually refer to the City of the Dead itself, but just because you're putting together this sort of map and you're thinking about it and looking at it, you notice it's like, yeah, it's almost like a heat map around this one place. It never goes very far. It doesn't go that much further into the Dwarven lands, although the older stories go even more far. You know, similarly with halflings.
Can we get NPC a higher? Because Aaron, I assume you're low on your Arcana check, right?
No.
Oh, you're actually good in your Arcana check?
Yep.
Fuck yeah, your character could do that then. Like, try to look into it. You usually go low Arcana check magic casters. So
Well, what do you want magic for? I didn't really catch the meaning of having.
My character can see patterns of attack, but there probably is no discernible pattern because it just seems like they're attacking everything, most likely, right? Until we see more. But if there's a pattern for magic, you know what I mean? Like, because my character would have heard stories as a historian of ancient things, like stories of like ancient spells spanning blah, 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 blah. Because all the good magic was always in the past, never the present, right?
Well, exactly, right. And that's actually quite literally happening right now.
So seeing if she could find some sort of magical pattern to it, because his goal is to wipe out all of life, including plant life, for a quiet world. Mm-hmm. That's going to be more than just we burn everything with swords over the course. That's going to be magic involved.
Exactly.
So,
go ahead and give me an Arcana roll, Aaron, for that sort of, you're looking, like he's explaining this to you and you're putting together this whole idea. And his crit, which is great.
Oh, can I have given her bardic inspiration? I would have. I'm sorry.
It's a crit though. So you come this together and you come to the realization of the cool thing about Devi as a character is that she's a burglar. She might not say that, but she is. She's gone and she's stolen many things that are magical, stories, things that are important. And you even hear rumors of old things and items, and you come to this conclusion of why these attacks are taking place based on, even books you've read about this character of Verminus, more or less, in legends, of that it's not so much taking slaves, not taking prisoners, not taking laborers, not even taking people to turn them into skeletons, because people die. And there's actually, in some of these stories, I forgot to mention, but Devi would know more about it, is that very often when the dead sort of roll through, they go to graveyards, they raise the dead, and they leave with those troops. They don't kill people in the streets and turn them into undead, aside from in human stories, where it's much more of a bloodbath. It's a very peaceful encounter most of the time, as long as you don't attack them. But you come to the realization, but they are almost like batteries. That Verminus needs their life force for something. Maybe it's to keep him alive, to drain the life force so that his Lich form can continue to exist, continue to be tied to every realm at once while being this unliving abomination. Perhaps even the use of living creatures as batteries is involved in the plane shifting of Vanatef itself. Because they appear here, they grab a whole bunch of people, and then they leave, and no one knows where it goes. Because understanding of other planes is not really something that is very knowledgeable at this time. You know that other planes exist. You know of the Feywild and the Shadowfell, but like the beyond of that is sort of, yeah, there is a beyond, and some people have mapped it out. You don't know so much about it, but you do know that it plane shifts, and doing something like that on a citywide scale, well, a necromancer surely could use life force as an energy force for both Verminus itself and Vanateth, the realm, the city of the dead that it has created. So you come to this conclusion very much that it's the prisoners are not slaves. They are not doing anything. The whole city exists to feed them, to keep them, to fatten them up, and then drain them of their life force. The reasoning, you're not entirely sure, but you believe it's probably linked to the lichdom itself. Because remember, lichdom is not a very understood thing. This is, if not the only lich in the land, the only lich that is talked about in the future, you know.
Yeah. So basically, I just pass on the information. They're not slaves, they're components. Probably for his magic. His undeath, his keep.
That seems like a far worse faith than death. At least in death, one can rejoin their loved ones that they've lost over the years, can become part of the eternal harvest, and walk alongside those that they worship. This is far worse. Not only do they live a life knowing that death is around every corner, waiting for them, but after death finally does come, what of their soul? What of their passing? That's a terrible existence.
Yeah, you have very much figured, Devi, that the soul is consumed. The soul, the life force, that's very much...
It's definitely gone.
Yeah, and that means it's not going to any afterlife.
Mm-hmm.
Then I hope that we all understand the gravity of the situation and bring our full attention to bear. Countless lives, including the ones that we love and even our own. Not in this life, but the next one and all of eternity. They rely on our success. It's frightening.
It's not so frightening if we succeed. He like leans in, trying to like make them a bit more chipper.
I'll actually smile. Like, it's like when he says that, it's like I was leaning forward, and then I like smile. I can't fight it. It comes across my face. I look up and look at you and just like give like an appreciative nod. I'm actually gonna get up and go find my best bottle of liquor because I was about to fall into a slump, and you just pulled me the fuck out of it. It was like, just pour a drink and share happy stories.
Yeah, happy stories for the night.
Of conquests past.
Oh, did you see what happened to that dragon? I mean, come on.
Other conquests past. Okay, yeah, of course.
No, but obviously. Yeah, just sharing stories and trying to be as joyous as possible.
If we're going to be all like around the fire, like having fun and sharing stories and whatnot for the night, I will at some point cast a like silent image of myself, like somewhere like around the fire, and I will like capture the image of like us all together. Me not really there, but.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Make a lovely little painting.
You coalesce the image into a painting that you put aside for later.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, did you just spend 1,000 gold to commission Ollie to make a
You can spend as much gold as you.
Gosh.
Well, Devi, you absolutely could use 1,000 if you wanted, because of like all the money that you could have taken from the horde and stuff.
You're the aunt of the king, you know. Like,
yeah, exactly.
The emperor, which is even more grand than a king. You know, like. Oh.
I hope this painting shows up at some point
Oh, that's funny. Anyways,
And I'll show it off afterwards.
I don't think there's
that
anything
is
else
an Jarviskjir homebrew spell.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is it? Oh, cool.
Yep.
Yeah, it is.
And actually, in universe, Devi is the inventor of this spell.
Mm.
Oh,
first
so she
person
doesn't
to
just steal art. She steals other people's experiences and turns them into art so she can make a profit a different way.
Yeah, no, I also steal art and I make copies of the art and I sell the copies and it's very profitable.
She likes to cast capture image while she's stealing the art. So it's
You know,
almost
so
like
you
a
have an
selfie.
image. I love the idea of casting silent image and then capturing yourself. That's
great.
that's genius. No one would
Yeah.
have thought of that.
Strangely, she looks slightly younger and more vivacious.
Much better, much
and her
better.
clothes
You know,
are
the
put
light
together
captures
better
her
than
brilliantly.
everybody else remembers.
I think it is written in here. You can make it slightly more or less attractive if you want. So you can have it look very heroic of the moment. And that's brilliant. And as you spend this night telling heroic stories of your past, and General speaks of probably the battle that gave him his title, and Mikhail talks of that time he burnt something. Oh, and that other time he burnt something. Oh, and that other time. Oh. The four of you drink and make merry, but don't drink so much that you're completely hungover, because very early in the next morning and the crack of sunlight, and the sun beams down with a great purpose as it does on Holy Wars of Pyth. The war camp at Armsmeet starts to march, starts to move. Everything is packed up. A muddy trail is left as a multitude of horses and tired men move and walk, with halfling scouts moving ahead in front of everyone. Because actually all the halflings in this region are Lightfoot halflings, so they're very fast, very nimble. They're traveling through the forests and undergrowth with great speed. They're making sure that if there are any enemies on the land, that they can destroy them with no problem. And you start traveling towards Vanateth for the battle. And you know what? I think that'll be where we end it off here today. So, I hope you enjoyed, and we're going to start our Wheel of Shame. Let me put on some slightly less dramatic music.
Shameful music.
I was playing really creepy music, actually. And our Circle of Shame starts with... actually, no, we were doing a circle of the opposite of shame, like heroism or whatever, and it goes reverse for this campaign. I nearly forgot. Starting with Scott.
Hi.
How are you doing?
3 hours, 10 minutes, Dark Side of Star Wars. Twitch.tv/Lost Initiative show. Other than that, Google Delric.
That's very topical at the moment. Dark Side of Star Wars?
Yeah, Dark Side of Star Wars. Right? No? Is that wrong? Yeah, that's right.
No, you're right. It's topical because of all the Star Wars fandom stuff going on at the moment.
Well, because Wade's on his honeymoon, so when we...
I get it. I was just making a joke that has just gone over your bearded head.
I don't Google Star Wars things because I am Star Wars.
It's not a Google. I'll explain it in like 2 seconds when the stream ends. Speaking of 2 seconds, Ian. Best 2 seconds of my life are spent looking at Ian. There we go.
That's what you meant.
You thought it was an insult. It was a compliment all along.
Okay. I am Ian, aka
Circle of
Arvi,
Fame. That's it. I forgot.
resident weeb and creator of characters in Jarviskjir with no sense of humor, because none of them seem to have any sense of humor. Look me up.
Lily has sense of humor.
Lily has a sense of humor. Yes, this is
The characters you play on stream don't have a sense of humor.
No, this is true. This is true. So just look me up on Twitter if you want random anime and D&D musings, or hit me up on Discord.
Or you want to hear the behind the scenes of my Monday game. The best way to do it is to follow Ian.
Yeah,
pretty
because
much
I'm just basically commenting about how many games of random crap I'm winning just by dividing in.
He plays a character on Monday who is a divination wizard with lucky and multiple abilities to see into the future, and basically just uses it to gamble.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know
because
what? It's totally
it's
very legit.
The best thing yet is getting the party to agree to decide decide which way to go in character, and then portenting in a roll into that to guarantee that I got my way.
Yeah,
that was classic.
Yeah, exactly. And now I just stop making them roll. It's like, oh, you relax for a night. We're doing a long rest. You're having a chat. You're playing some games of dice. Don't roll for it. Lily wins. She always
Great
wins.
success.
Next up on the Circle of Fame, Will.
Hey, I am Will, and I do things like D&D with Ollie on his show on Wednesday, and D&D with Ollie and Scott and Aaron on Friday's Eberron campaign. I also brew beer. Look me up. Will Call Brewing.
And last of all,
I'm Erin. I play here on Wednesdays and on Scott's channel on Wednesdays also, and on Fridays. And that's all I do, really, as far as you guys are concerned.
you don't know about my secret
As
life.
far as you are allowed to know.
There's some horrible secrets. That
I
we
mean,
cannot
honestly,
disclose.
she's just been over on X Hamster with Dean lately. It's just a thing.
What?
No, we can't make that joke anymore.
Dean
He's not
Cuddy.
here. That's a Dean
Dean
Cuddy
Cuddy.
original
Listen, excuse me, Dean Cuddy's always here.
in our
Always here.
hearts. Ha! Oh, Scott. I made you in the baseball game I'm playing, and I did give you a brilliant bit. I just reminded me because Dean might be the favorite character I made of False Pretenses in that baseball game because he just looks very goofy. Yes, and you can see me in multiple places, including on Sunday, where I'll probably play baseball with my buddy Winter Bear Games, and I'm on a lot of things like. This is my main stuff. I do other things on this channel as well, but they are a little sporadic at the moment because my schedule is totally changing, and I'm also sleeping a lot because I'm bad. But I'm on other stuff like Lost Initiative on Thursdays, but not every Thursday, and I'm on Scott's other channel, and there may be some things coming up in future Ollie times, including a very different game here, so if you want to get in on my Patreon, you could affect the next game right now if you support on Patreon. I get to make NPCs, and you can make someone really super important if you just get in right now. Get in while the deal's hot. That's how it works. And we'll see you next week for the battle of Lichvale. We'll see you next time.
And even this time.
Say goodbye to the kids at home.
Bye, kids at home.
Hey, kids.